Hi there, I'm back with another sketchbook ideas video for you, and I'm so happy I get to share these with you because I want you to understand that a sketchbook doesn't necessarily need to be this perfect book of art that you're gonna flip through in front of thousands of people. It only needs to be the safe space that you have that allows you to express yourself creatively and ultimately have fun, release some stress, be happy. And I know the hardest part is to start sometimes, so that's why today I'm sharing ideas that you can use as a starting point and then let your creativity take over and have tons of fun. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Paula. I've done a ton of these videos. You can check them out if you want. And if you're not new, welcome back. Let's get creative. Let's jump into the first idea, and I'm going to really get my paper wet for this one. And as I do this, I want to tell you that this video will be a little bit different because as I share each idea, I am also going to be sharing ways that can help you develop your own creativity. Because we are all actually creative. It's just that some of us practice more and do more things to keep that creativity developing, so it's easier to reach for. Okay, so first tip to exercise your creativity is to have curiosity. Be curious and try things with an open mind. To illustrate this, as we talk about it, I'm going to try something for the first time because I'm curious about it. As you've been watching, I've been adding a lot of really watered down color on my already damp paper. I'm having fun with the color combination, and now I'm placing a piece of plastic wrap on top. I let that dry, and once it was dried, I removed the plastic, and here's my result. So now what? Since I've never done this before, I followed my first impulse to add more watercolor to certain areas to make them darker because the result did not look like I expected at all, and it didn't really inspire me to do anything initially. When I was doing this, I started wondering what would happen if I just added more color there and then again the plastic on top. So definitely not thinking about the end result, but heavily leaning into my curiosity and acting on it by trying things. Did that, let it dry, and removed it. Now I had a strong line, which I opted to make darker by outlining it with black. Because I had no other ideas and I was curious about how they'd look, I went over the lines left by the plastic too. They kinda look like cells. When I had my fill of drawing the little cells, I started to get more creative with the line work by making some lines thicker and adding extra lines to support my composition. So this is the first result of my curiosity. And I say first result because I could keep exploring this further and see where the tracing of the lines made by the plastic wrap would take me. And when I was done being curious, I actually had ideas on painting landscapes with this technique. But for now, I'm going to move on to tip and idea number 2. To develop your creativity more, you also need flexibility. So in my case, I'm going to be flexible and combine and modify the first technique I tried into a second one. So again, I start by wetting the paper, and I'm modifying this by actually painting something instead of adding random color stains on the page. I'm painting very loose flowers. I started to paint individual long petals, but then I changed them to round, simple flowers. I used a lot of color this time, and I was really filling the space, trying to leave less areas that were white or closer to white. I was really going for a punch of colors, so a darker background also and dark brown centers for the flowers. Done laying down the color, and this is where everything went a little bit south. I was about to put the plastic on top and I just could not get it off the roll. It was completely clinging. Couldn't for the life of me get a piece out, and as I struggled, the watercolor dried a bit. In desperation, I just grabbed the pieces I used on the previous idea and placed them on top before it completely dried. Okay, that was not ideal, but it still worked well enough. So when I removed it, it looked good. I then took my color pencils and started to draw and color on top to see what happened. Again, being flexible and trying different things. Done. I mean, again, this is not the most amazing page I've ever done in my sketchbook, but don't leave. It gets better. But it definitely is the start of something. I can see if I try it again and again, the result could be wonderful and creative, and the same will happen to you. Start with something and it will get better as you try it and try it. You'll get better ideas and you'll make more stuff. So let's get to the next idea, an element to develop creativity. We already talked about being curious and having an open mind about things by being flexible. The next thing you can do to be more creative is to combine things that you experience and literally connect dots. So in this example, I am going to do two things I've done already, but I'm going to put it together, which I've never done. So I started by drawing some circles to paint with watercolor, and while I was doing this, I thought about another thing I could connect. I wanted to let the paint bleed onto the space freely, so I tried to change the way I drew the circles. I wanted them to connect now, so I made them bigger, but that wasn't working, so I erased everything and drew them again. Now they were connecting, but not centered. Oh well, it's good enough. Started to fill the circles with color, which always feels so relaxing. I love painting watercolor circles. It's so nice. And I love using really watered down colors because it's very nice to see them flow as they kinda take lives of their own. My original idea for when these circles dried was to paint patterns with a supply I've never used in my practice but was recently playing with. I'll let you know what that supply was further along the video, but at that moment I actually changed my plan and thought maybe it would be fun to use the plastic wrap again. So I cut a piece before everything dried, and I actually tried to reactivate the circles I painted first with extra water this time. Why didn't I think about that before? And then, of course, I placed the plastic on top of everything. As it dried, I noticed the paint started to bleed out from the circles. Bummer. But I let it go and waited for it to dry. When it did, I removed the plastic and the circles were dried. I decided I would try to paint around them with white to clean things up and go back to my original idea. But when I used my Posca marker, it moved the pigment for the watercolors and mixed. Not what I was expecting, but I liked it. So I did it all around the circles and I now had a nice background. I really loved how it was looking, and I was ready to use my mysterious material now. But I remember I had this gold watercolor paint from Christie's shop and I wanted to try it. See? Connecting yet another dot. By the way, today I'm using all of Christie's brushes again and her watercolors along my other faves from Jane Davenport. Anyhow, I started to create some little marks with the gold paint. But as I did this, I really paid attention to the patterns the plastic had created on the circles. So I pivot once again to fill some of those spaces in with the gold. I like this much more, so I went back to those first marks and watered them down and filled in that space too. Then I continued to fill spaces in all of the circles, and here's my final result. I'm obsessed with this one, which means that this piece will get blown up into a mock-up and that I will definitely be introducing some of these ideas onto my canvas paintings in the rest of my art practice. Next way to keep developing your creativity, and idea number 4. Experimentation. I don't remember where I saw this idea, so I couldn't find the reference to share with you or to actually make sure on how to do this, but here we go. Let's experiment by painting with a toilet paper tube. So the part I remember is that you bend it into a heart and use paint on the edge to use it like a stamp. I decided to try it with my watercolors. I had to go hunting all over my house for these 4 little tubes, which I guess means I need to organize my supplies. I got paint all over the edge and started to stamp hearts on my page. Now, what I don't remember is what the art they made looked like at the end or how they used the paint from the edges. So I just dipped my brush into my pink watercolor and started to fill one of the hearts. Again, super watered down paint so it could mix with other colors and grab a little bit of that Payne's gray from the heart's outline as well. I painted the following hearts with pink and purple, and then I just thought I would stamp some more to fill the page more. Painted those with pink, purple, hot pink, and red, letting all of them bleed onto each other. When I finished painting in the hearts, I thought I would actually pull out some of the paint from the edges of the hearts and cover the whole background. When it dried, I thought the image could use something more, so I grabbed more of that gold watercolor to do some lines and little patterns like I was going to do on the circles in the first place. After playing with the gold for a little bit, here's how my heart composition turned out and what I got from exploring stamping with a toilet paper tube. Moving on to the next way to improve your creativity and the next idea for today. We are going to look into the ordinary, really observe something we always see and come up with something new. To do that, I decided I was going to paint my little studio plant. Plant life is something that we can deem ordinary because we are surrounded by so much greenery and plants and leaves that sometimes they don't surprise us anymore. So I thought I would take a closer look and paint it with my watercolors. I reproduced it as closely to reality as I could, using different shades of green in different layers, aiming to get the painting of the leaves and the shadows just right. I finished painting my plant, and after some observation and all of the processing I did while I was painting it, I thought I would bring my mystery art supply in now. They got a little pushback today, but I really wanted to use them, so here they are, colorful glitter gel pens. My idea was to try a different pattern and a different color for each leaf. I tried a zigzag pattern for the first one. On the second one, I started to paint lines following the veining of the leaf. I was mesmerized by these glitter pens when I was coloring with my daughter using them the other day. They were so satisfying to use, I thought I could use them again somehow, so here we are. After I was done filling the second leaf with lines, I thought it looked much better than the first one, so I decided I would like it best if I did only lines on all leaves and just change the color for each one. So I did the next one with purple, the top one with red, and then went back to the first leaf I drew on with the darker green to do the same type of lines. Finally, I used gold on the bottom leaf, and here's my result. I really think this is a great idea to put a little twist into something ordinary and then just make it extraordinary. It can really help you to come up with something creative and new. You can see as I tilt my sketchbook, the lines from the gel pens shine a little bit more. But I really wanted you to see this page under artificial light because the effect is so much cooler. Okay. Next idea, and for this one I'm going to use a double spread. I'm going to talk about persistence and the developing of practice by going for quality in quantity. I'll go further in what this implies, but let me first share with you what I'm doing. I'm going to try and practice my watercolor gradients and layering by practicing on these pages using transparency. I wanted to paint a bunch of colorful circles and gradients to do this, but because I am intimidated by it, you can see my hand hesitating to jump in to paint my first circle. See, I get nervous too. Well, I did it. I painted my first circle and it was way too saturated with paint and water, so I removed some of that by blotting it with a paper towel. Painted the second one and I still think it had too much paint. I tried to use that to paint the circles around it. Even in this small part of the exercise, you can see each circle I paint. I try to do better than the previous one, trying to improve my execution. Now the other side of the spread, I'm going to use to take the same colors I'm using for the gradients and try to paint a flower, on which I'll be testing and learning how the watercolors layer when they are dry. When the first bunch of magenta circles fully dried, I started to work on the second layer of circles with red. Again, little by little, I was trying to get more control on the amount of paint and how to move it within the circle. I am a self-taught artist and I've never taken a watercolor class, so testing and persisting and trying it again and again is the way I've learned everything, and is the way I know I can use to find things and discover new ideas, or at least discover the way I like to do things with any medium. After I finished doing all of my circles, again I went to the other side of the spread to paint petals on top to see how the watercolors would act together. And I noticed as they dried, I was getting these cauliflower watermarks, so I wet my brush and moved the paint to try to avoid them. Third layer of circles, and I started with the orange, layering them on top and seeing how they combine. If I wanted to get more creative with this technique and get better and more creative with layering watercolors, I would have to practice a lot and focus not only on my end results, but the quantity of pages I do so that I can achieve quality. So yes, my creativity gets better and more efficient as I persist. Yellow dots were next, of course, because I'm working on rainbow order, and I used the yellow to paint one more layer of petals on my flower too. Then I did the green circles, and instead of doing another layer of petals for my flower, I drew some random leaves around it going on top of the petals for the layering effect. Then I painted the blue circles and used it for part of the background on the opposite page. Finally, I painted some purple circles and added a little bit of purple to the background too. Here's how my 2 pages look. I think this is an amazing exercise to get familiar with the medium, but that will also carry you into new ideas. And I actually liked how my circles page turned out, so I'm going to show it to you on a mock-up as well. Moving on to the next idea that can help you get more creative, which is do something different. To illustrate this on video, I'm actually going to paint something random, but it actually means to take a break from what you're doing and change the activity completely. I'm painting clouds just because, but the idea would be to stop painting altogether and maybe take a walk outside, listen to music, exercise, cook, organize something, read, or whatever breaks the rhythm of what you're doing. To break the rhythm of what I was doing, I thought I should stop painting clouds and paint anything else on that page. And because I really enjoy painting circles, I started painting some, and as I painted them, I thought I would connect all of the clouds with circles. Makes absolutely zero sense, but I wasn't going for a composition or making sense. I was just doing something different to get creative ideas. When I had enough circles, I thought I wanted to use those gel pens again, and at first I thought about outlining the clouds or adding stars, but I settled for drawing circles on top, which is something else I like to do a lot. I was also happy to use many different colors because it feels like play. As you can see, I'm not doing this to create something that exists or something recognizable. I'm just doing what I felt like doing and trying something different. And I was done. Here's my final composition. I think this could actually be an awesome pattern to do gift wrap or something. I really liked it, so why not share it in a mock-up too? That wraps up the sketchbook ideas I wanted to share today. I hope I inspire you to try them on your own sketchbook. But mostly, I hope that you take into consideration all of the elements and ideas for developing your own creativity I shared with you today, and that these help you making your own art practice interesting and artistic tantrum-free as you create while exploring and experimenting with curiosity and freedom. That's it from me, wishing you the most wonderful day. I'll see you next Friday. Bye!